Good evening. This is the Daily Drum for Wednesday, April 24th. Here's what's happening. A new juvenile curfew in Prince George's County will be announced tomorrow. County Executive Angela Alsobrooks and Police Chief Malik Aziz are expected to roll out the Friday through Sunday 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew for the National Harbor. This in response to wildly disruptive incidents by young people over the weekend at the popular location. Councilmember Edward Burrows says he's received numerous complaints.
I have reports of parents who are renting out hotel rooms, thinking that maybe 5 or 6 young people will be in the room, but it ends up being 50 young people engaged in very destructive behavior to themselves and to the community.
A new emergency business district juvenile curfew bill is also set for a vote by the county council next Tuesday. An 18-year-old has been found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the deaths of 2 Fairfax County high school students. Usman Shahid hit the girls as they were walking from home from Oakton High School back in 2022. Shahid was speeding at more than 80 miles an hour when he hit a car and then 3 girls. The 3rd girl survived. He will be sentenced tomorrow. Well, starting Monday in D.C., school bus cameras will record drivers who drive around when the stop arm on the bus is extended. 25 buses have the new cameras. You'll only get a warning if you're caught during the first 45 days. After that, you could be fined up to $500 for a violation. More pro-Palestinian protests erupted on college campuses across the country today.
You're committing assault! This is illegal! You're committing
There was some pushing and shoving at the University of Southern California when police tried to break up a tent protest. Texas state troopers on horseback were at the Austin campus of the University of Texas. The Palestine Solidarity Committee says it wants to establish a foothold at the UT campus. Well, demonstrators on both sides of the abortion issue made their voices heard on the steps of the Supreme Court today. They rallied this morning as the High Court heard arguments in a case challenging Idaho's strict abortion ban. Pro-choice activists say Idaho's law puts a woman's health at risk by making it a crime for doctors to perform the procedure, except in circumstances like rape or saving the mother's life. Let's take a look at the weather now. Tonight, clear skies with lows in the upper 30s to mid 40s. Tomorrow, sunny and cooler with highs in the low 60s. Well, coming up, juvenile curfews, armed teachers in the classroom, the mystics move because of Caitlin Clark, and more. Join us at the Reporters Roundtable for some of the top stories of the week. Insight is next on WHUR and WHUT TV.
On the go and on demand, WHUR and WHUT are with you. Download the WHUR app today to get full access to shows, playlists, and our latest contests. To access WHUT on demand, download the PBS app and make Howard University Television your station. Catch up on our WHUT original productions anytime, anyplace on YouTube at WHUT TV. WHUR and WHUT, better together.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you might have noticed something a little different on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm Angie Ange, our Director of Content here at WHUT. And Monday nights at 8 p.m., we like to call it Must See DMV. All your favorite shows from all your favorite creators focus solely on what makes DC, Maryland, and Virginia so special. So set your clock and we'll catch you at 8 p.m. right here on WHUT, Howard University Television, telling your stories on your station.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and WHUT TV and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the Reporters Roundtable with a look at the top stories of the week. My guests are Nicki Mayo, editor-at-large for Black Women Unmuted, and Micha Green, managing editor for the Washington Informer. As always, we have a lot to discuss on deck tonight. A new juvenile curfew in Prince George's County, violence at a senior skip day event in Greenbelt. Tennessee lawmakers passed a bill to allow armed teachers in the classroom. Pro-Palestine protests are growing across U.S. college campuses. Monumental Sports changes the venue for the Mystics Indiana Fever game in June because of high ticket demand. Caitlin Clark was the #1 draft pick for the NBA, and that seems to be the reason. Yeah. And of course, the Trump trial. Who really cares? Ladies, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Nikki,
thank
always
you.
good to see you. Absolutely. All right, so first off, Prince George's County leaders are putting the wheels in motion to enact a stricter curfew for minors. Hundreds of unsupervised teenagers went wild at National Harbor over the weekend, causing problems well into the overnight hours. And this prompted immediate action by the county executive and the county council. Council Chair Jolene Ivey said yesterday, enough is enough.
None of us is happy about having to do this. It's terrible that people are not keeping an eye on their children. They're dropping them off or giving them money for Uber or whatever they're doing, allowing their children to come down to a place of commerce and just basically show their butts. And we can't have it. We are not going to have them run business out of our county.
An executive order in the emergency bill would put a more restrictive curfew in place. It would also see parents held accountable for their kids' actions, including fines. Nikki, your thoughts about this?
She's right. When it starts to get warm or things start to heat up, people start to act up. We know this in any location. With them being minors, though, okay, fine. Let's finally attempt to hold parents accountable. We've seen that actually with a lot of things, even with active shooters finally holding parents accountable for the actions of their children. So it's if they can make it work, great. We've seen curfews enacted. We've seen attempts. The question is it working, though? It's more of a deterrent than anything else. If they found their way down there this time, they can do it again. And that was at National Harbor. And then, of course, you had the senior skip day thing as well, a tradition that sadly went from fun to just dangerous very fast. You want to protect young people. You really do. But I just feel like enacting it might lead to some other issues, profiling possibly, misuse of force. I just get nervous when we say we're going to do a curfew. But we do need to have something happen. Holding parents accountable might be the ticket to do it.
Misha.
You know, I think holding parents accountable is the key, but I don't want to see us lose sight of the fact that we need to be able to trust young people. We need to be able to raise them to a point that you can let them go. I remember as I was a little bit younger than them, being able to hang out in Georgetown or hang out at the Boulevard and things like that. And just hang out, you know, and do your thing. And that's a part of growing up and being a teenager. And so I think the difference in the past 15, 20 years, that's so weird to say, right?
It's real, though. It's real life.
I wish I could say 15 or 20
Getting
years.
dropped off at the mall.
You know,
now
right.
It's like, can you drop them off anywhere?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really important to note that back before there was social media and things like that people were doing this. People were having a good time and being able to gather in large groups. I think you have something like Senior Skip Day in Greenbelt, as well as the incident in National Harbor over the weekend, where so many people can come together. And that's where the problem comes. And so I think that if you're providing these opportunities, let's have some parental supervision. Let's have some really cool teachers, you know, the Howard intern that was there,
Right.
you know,
Hanging out.
who can truly still be chaperones, but allowing these opportunities to happen, because social media is around. People are going to go, they're going to gather. And so I think it's training the parents, training the educational leaders. I mean, I'm looking at Aisha Braveboy and Angela also Brooks weigh in about this Greenbelt situation. And there's so much like, well, they should have been in school. Absolutely. But we know they're not going to be in school on Senior Skip Day. And so what are the provisions that we're putting in place now that we know that social media will have 500 to 600 people at a park, which is insane. We'll have 100 people for one fight, you know? I mean, if you're going to have these things, that there needs to be provisions in place from a larger authoritarian sort of point of view. And of course, I think the fines work as well. I think all the parents will get together and figure out who's going to be volunteering to help out over the weekend.
But
Parent
so
patrol.
Yeah.
Like
so
parent patrols.
a couple of issues. I agree. Yes, you should want to be able to trust your children. Yes. So the Michas, the Nickis, the Harolds. Yes, I agree. Georgetown, long before you were hanging in Georgetown, I was hanging in Georgetown. And
This goes down the back of my day.
that's right, you know, but we never got into any trouble. But obviously, what we saw this weekend, those kids can't be trusted. Those
It's
the
a handful that can't be trusted.
but
Right.
no, it's a big handful.
Well,
It depends.
I think-
Okay, Senior Skip Day was an individual that
I'm not
shot
talking-
into a
no, I
crowd.
mean, that-
but
yeah.
the National Harbor was definitely like, they were going down there for a fight.
That's
They
what I'm
were,
talking
but
about.
not
I'm
everyone
talking
was
about the
there to
National
fight.
Harbor situation.
And
They
I
were there to
think
watch the
some
fight.
people were there to be spectators, you know? It was the same day, ironically, that there was a big fight on television that their parents were probably watching, which is why all of them were able to get there. You know, I mean, let's be real. And so I think what we really have to look at is that, okay, if kids are going to be hanging out, is there one person who is in charge of the pickup group, right? Or a few people, just to make sure that things are happening, that these kids are supervised in a way that they can still do their own thing, but no one's meeting up for. If there was somebody taking even a quarter of those kids to that fight, right? So okay.
They took an Uber, you know.
Well, I know, but if they were getting rides, where are y'all going? To a fight? Because nothing else is open at this time of night at
Yeah, that
National
is still a
Harbor.
parent accountability thing.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying,
but-
you know. But I think again, they need to be trained to do this. These parents were hanging out in Georgetown with us.
The parents, which is why this proposal, and I guess we'll hear more about this tomorrow, is they're going to start hitting parents in the pocket.
in the pockets, yeah, which will help. That'll help real.
That'll
quick.
help reinforce that maybe you need to be a little bit more active in your child's life. I know that there's always going to be the excuse of, I can't be with my child all the time. And we do want to be able to have them be very independent. But I'm going back to like my high school teacher days where, fine, there's a fight in the hallway and they all want to go and hang out in the fight in the hallway. When the bell hits, I'm closing my door. If you're caught in the hallway, law enforcement's going to come find you in that hall sleep, okay? So you're putting yourself in that environment. I was always taught, you are either the company you keep, and when everyone's in trouble, no one can decipher, oh, well, you were just watching. So maybe this is the reinforcement that's necessary that, listen, parents, maybe you want to have hands off, but if we catch your kid at one of these events, it could cause you, I don't know, what are you talking, like $1,000 fine? I don't know, whatever the fine is.
$500.
Yeah,
$500.
Yeah, that can add up real fast, and I'm like, whew, child.
But you said earlier you don't necessarily like curfews, but something needs to be done. If not a curfew, what? Because you remember last year in Prince George's, the county executive instituted a curfew, and from all reports, it was successful.
Yeah, give it a rock. I mean, give it a try. There's always going to be somebody who says, I have a job, I have something to do. And it's almost they have to walk around with like a paper saying, I have something to do.
And that was included in the curfew last year.
Right.
But that's the thing. If you are a teenager and you have a job that you know, whether you're doing fast food or whatever you happen to be doing on a Friday or Saturday night, then chances are you're not going to get caught up in it. And if somebody asks you, I'm going to work.
Yeah.
It's also easy to move amongst our counties around here too. Like you can be snapped right here in Anne Arundel County really fast. So
For sure.
That much said, it almost makes the region, let's say Prince George's County in this case, it makes it almost like a sundown town or something. Like you don't be caught out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then they'll end up in D.C. somewhere or in Montgomery County or somewhere pretty accessible.
The problem, if
Potentially.
they're the problem can move.
Potentially.
The other thing is that adults hardly know county lines.
Yeah.
So you could be hanging out and be like, oh, shoot, I don't know the rules of this area. Real talk, it took me a while to realize I can't even pump gas in Jersey, okay? So after a while, like if I'm an adult and I didn't know this, you're expecting kids like, oh, when I go to Prince George's, I got to be out by whatever the curfew is going to be. I'm looking at the idea of expecting responsibility from a teenager. as a person that grades teens, my expectations
is though that they were totally able to figure out what time that fight
they figured out the
was.
logistics quick.
And they were,
They were like,
somebody got all the water guns for what apparently was a fun senior skip day before it went.
That's fun.
You know,
that was fun.
A different thing, but,
But,
go ahead.
but I guess my point is that if they are able to be accountable for the things that they want to do, then having fun on the weekend should be a part of that. And so if there's a level of a curve, I think 5 or 6 p.m. is absurd. Let's be very clear. And I know why they're doing it that early, but I think that's really a stretch. That said, if they can push it back a little bit later and kids are learning their lessons from this, and I think it might even encourage some responsibility on students who want to be out a little later, and so they get their
But
summer
don't
job.
forget 2 things.
Yeah.
First of all, there is a standing curfew in Prince George's County that starts at 10.
Right.
You know, yeah, exactly. but let's talk about the Shram Hills Park thing.
Yeah.
which was supposed to be fun.
It was supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
20 kids, 500 or 600. One person showed up with a real gun.
Yes.
If that had not happened,
It would have been normal.
it would have been normal.
Yeah.
Because even the chief of police in Greenbelt, during that press conference, he said, paraphrasing here, that this was supposed to be a fun gathering.
Yeah.
Senior Skip Day has been going on for decades.
The crime reporter in me is annoyed because I'm like, it takes the fun away from traditions.
For sure.
Exactly.
And let's be straight. How many times have we done this story where a block party got shot up, a community free-for-all fair, whatever got shot up, and now it's sadly a senior skip day got shot up. They're sitting ducks. They're just having fun. This could have happened at somebody's family reunion because it's a massive group of people.
Right.
If I'm looking for one guy at the family reunion and I know he's going to be there, we've seen funerals get shot up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But here's the other question. That happened last Friday.
Right.
And the police in Greenbelt, the officials there, they had a press conference on Friday. We didn't really hear an official word from the county executive until Monday.
Early this week, yeah.
Yeah. Should she have said something?
Well, I think that this was very sensitive and she didn't really know which way. I mean, it was. So 2 things that I thought was interesting that came from the county executive and the state's attorney. They, first of all, very, very much so differed, which says a lot about what's happening with oversight and where we're going in Prince George's County in that regard. That said, I think that also Brooks has been very intentional because she's had years in politics. She's been very, very intentional about allowing city lawmakers to do their thing. And so she really, I think, allowed Greenbelt to do their thing. That said, because she is the county executive, I would have expected some sort of statement, some sort of showing up a little bit sooner, but because there were 500 to 600 students, I think she was trying to figure out what the heck happened.
Exactly.
But don't forget, Prince George's County Police were called in because how many police are in Greenbelt?
Right.
I mean,
There's
it's
a small area,
department.
but also, I mean, and I know that Senior Skip Day is a tradition, and I think that it's great that they were able to have such a good time, and luckily there were no fatalities even in that. All super thankful for, but I think that it does need to again let leaders know that people want this outlet. Seniors want this kind of outlet. They want to do this, and
which is what the chief said. They needed an outlet. They needed to let off steam.
They needed to have. I mean, let's be straight. Let's not act like it just popped up and no one knew about it.
Right.
There's whole social media units within everybody's law enforcement.
Yes.
They know this stuff is happening.
They know it,
and they keep an eye on it. The question is, sadly, is someone going to be there that might be the target of a problem, a crime? Because that's essentially what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Or is somebody there this isn't giving me the whole you stepped on my sneakers, I'm shooting.
No.
It gave me the I'm looking for somebody.
It's very
who just happened
targeted.
to be there.
Multiple schools were there. Because at first I
Exactly.
was like, Greenbelt is a big school, but 500 to 600.
That ain't
yeah,
just
you-
Greenbelt. That's everybody. Like, everybody come hang
Yeah,
out.
okay, so that we know.
Yeah.
Bladensburg was definitely there.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Yeah.
It was
It was
less
right
than a
down the
mile
street
away
from Roosevelt.
my-
I mean,
my
it's
school.
like the big,
Go
you know,
Raiders.
festival. Okay, fine. It was a big festival.
Don't get me to sing the Roosevelt.
No,
Please don't.
Please don't.
I
No.
know it.
Not on
No.
But yeah, like you said, Bladensburg, Eleanor Roosevelt, Bowie.
It was
I
like
think.
everybody hang out.
Yeah.
And it could have been fun. I mean, again, it was a quick response, though.
It was a quick response, but then still hard to access them. You hear a lot of the witnesses talking about the fact that the parking lot was so full that the emergency vehicles couldn't get in. I'm just wondering, I mean, I've been to a lot of things like that in D.C., some that seemed like they just popped up, and I'm sure that they were planned, and others that seemed very, very planned and curated. But there's always some heavy level of police, at least around. Maybe it's
Nearby.
not heavy, but you'll see a police car, you'll see a cruiser in the corner, and maybe one or two guys walking around. Just something like that, because if we know that this happens every year, if Prince George's has that in place at Shram Hills Park next year, I also was so surprised, and maybe I shouldn't have been, I need to look into my parks, but that there were no cameras there until post the issue. I think they installed it the Saturday after the shooting.
Well, there's some motivation.
And so, you know, these are precautions that Prince George's needs to take.
Now, the one thing that I did see last week was that prior to the shooting, I think when police officers came, at least one officer had his police body cam on. You heard the shots on the body cam. So obviously they were trying to keep order, and then, you know, the shots happen. And I'm just very, very interested in seeing how do you find a shooter out of 500 or 600 people?
You had to rely on
with
camera
water
video if you
guns
had
everywhere.
something.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate. And unfortunately, we can't have nice things. Bad things are going to happen when nice people are trying to get together and have fun. And I keep thinking, like, if the answer would be if the county could put aside some money and, okay, we'll have a universal senior skip day. Okay, great. They're offering the service. But let's be straight. What teenager wants to go to a county-sanctioned anything?
I think that's not it. I think we know it's happening. Let's have our ear to the ground there. It's kind of like, you know, we saw how crazy Freaknik got. That documentary, if you haven't seen it, go ahead.
I don't have Hulu. I guess I'm going to have
Disney Plus, though.
It's on Disney Plus.
If you go on Disney Plus, you can go over to Hulu.
Exactly.
I learned that now.
Okay, I'm confused. Disney, Freaknik?
I know it's bad. It's bad. And when you look at your recents, I'm like, this is horrible, okay? It's really bad.
You're like,
and Disney,
Moana.
But believe it or not, yes, Moana and Freaknik are both on the same one. I'm sorry for your listeners, yes.
No, but I mentioned that we can see how crazy
Things
parties
can
get.
Yeah.
But they start off with really great intentions. And if you have people who know, all right, this time every April, you're going to have a whole lot of seniors at this park. Let's just be ready ear to the ground and ready to go. I think that's good.
And just have a presence so that no one really wants to do something like that. Because let's be straight. Okay, back in my day. Okay, they were going to, again, I also went to white schools too. So they were going to down the ocean. They were going, senior skip day was all the way down to Ocean City.
Exactly.
Yeah, and trust me, enough libations, fights are breaking out. They may not shot each other, but yeah, they're fighting all up and down the boardwalk. So it's not like it's an inner anything issue. It's just a opportunity. And yeah, you know what? Elmo owes me money. I'm about to go and take care of this real quick.
We are going to take a break, but don't forget, you can hear every edition of the Daily Drum Inside segment via podcast on WHUR.com, or of course you can download the 96.3 HD2 app on your smartphone and hear the program live in its entirety. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM Channel 141 and WHUT TV. I'm Harold Fisher. John Mons is next with the original Quiet Storm. That's on WHUR. We'll be back in just a bit.
WHUT is dedicating weekdays at 10:30 a.m. to bring you the best of our locally produced series, like our Arts and Artists show, Artico, our energetic music series, DMV The Beat.
Get Out. When I wrote that song, we were fighting.
And stories highlighting the endurance of the human spirit with legacy.
He used to say to me all the time, when I die, the newspaper's yours.
So remember, tune in weekdays at 10:30 a.m.
Howard University Television PBS and WHUR 96.3 are joining forces Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. as we bring you Harold Fisher and the Daily Drum live as we take you inside the stories of the DMV. We've got the experts and the people that matter most to help you make informed decisions for your family and your community. That's the Daily Drum, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. live on WHUT and WHUR. Better together.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUT TV and Sirius XM, channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the Reporters Roundtable with a look at some of the top stories of the week. My guests are Nicki Mayo, editor-at-large for Black Women Unmuted, and Micha Green, managing editor for the Washington Informer. Okay, let's talk about this bill in Tennessee, allowing teachers to carry guns. It's now on the way to the governor's desk. It's believed that he is going to sign it. Now, even as the bill passed yesterday, protesters were vocal.
Giving teachers pistols in classrooms. My little brother is 10 years old. I don't want him anywhere close to a gun. I'm a college student myself. I don't want to be near a gun.
We will vote you out if you don't listen, because we want to be safe in our schools.
So this bill allows for specially trained teachers to carry handguns in their classroom, and parents would not know if their child's teacher was armed. Micha, good idea, bad idea?
Insane. I do not think it's a good idea. Students are smart. We know that. Parents don't tell kids that there's a gun in the house all the time, and they find it. Now you're talking about potentially 20 or more students to a classroom in the same room with a gun, with a teacher that could potentially be in the middle of a nervous breakdown or mental health episode, which is real, and we honor that and know that that's a thing, but also need to know that they should not be armed. I understand the fear that a lot of people have about sending students to school every day, knowing that there are crazy people in the world who intend to do bad things to young people or people in schools in general. That said, it's not a good idea.
I'm scared. I'm like, seriously, what could go wrong? Everything
could
go wrong. Like, I keep thinking about how already Black students are already over policed in all the different levels, all the way up to higher education. So think about if you have inherent racist bias against those students, and you already are rougher with them when it comes to detention and other types of enforcement. Now you have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
If you perceive that there's a threat, you could always say, I feared for my life. Is that the line? I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
So I get nervous about how that could go so wrong so quickly, and you're putting a lethal item into the hands of educators. Now, mind you, sure, they might be trained, they might be former military, whatever, but what if they have in their mind that this person is already more aggressive? This person is perceived as a threat. Now you have handed them a weapon to possibly, literally, like, our kids should feel safe in school.
Yeah.
It should not be a place where they feel like they're going to be over-policed, that they're going to be, like, literally possibly threatened for their life. They're already afraid to go to school because of mass shooters and things. I don't want them to be afraid of administrators and educators. That's not what school's supposed to be for them.
And we see what police officers already do
because outside of the school. So you're going to bring that into the school even more?
Exactly.
Like,
you know, it's just terrifying. And again, I mean, when you're in a situation where you feel fearful for your life or you don't know what's happening, a wrong decision can be made always, or a decision that could have potentially fatal consequences. And we see, again, law enforcement do that all the time, where they accidentally are reaching for a
wallet, a phone, right. And now they're not with us anymore.
Yeah, right. You know, and so I just don't want to see that happen. It is really, really scary.
So here's the thing that I did not know, and I'm kind of still wondering. I think this is an important story, but I didn't realize after hearing about it yesterday, why this was a big story, and this is why I say this. There are 31 states from New Hampshire to Alaska to Ohio and many more that allow teachers to carry guns in school. When I first heard this story on Network, I was thinking, oh my God, Tennessee is the first state.
Oh, no.
And it's
they're not the first, but it's bringing the conversation open.
Right.
Exactly.
With yes.
And with that said, I'm thinking, so now Tennessee is the 32nd state that allows teachers in some way, shape, or form with a laundry list of permissions or not to carry a handgun in class. And I think that's the thing that really surprised me. Maryland is not one of them. I don't think Virginia is.
I'm only surprised that Tennessee is that far up the line.
know.
I'm sorry. I worked in Appalachia, and frankly, the way the guns are out there, it's like air. So
Yeah.
I am surprised that they were that far behind everybody else.
And I will
Open
say,
carry is there.
and I will also say, you made a point about, students should not be afraid of their teachers. I pushed way back on that.
Well, for their life.
Yeah.
For their life.
I was terrified of some of my teachers.
Well, y'all probably got whoopings or something, too. Y'all got whoopings in class.
But I also think it's two-sided because I taught high school. I absolutely loved it.
And they weren't afraid of you.
Mine were never afraid of me.
I'm afraid of you.
Well,
I know you.
My college students are afraid of me, yes. My high school kids were never afraid of me, but the age gap was a little too small, too.
But I was going to say, I was closer in age to them at the time, but I do remember a student once, because we were so close in age, who felt comfortable. He was he was taller than me, bigger than me, and a guy, and he stormed at me, right? And so I'm just thinking that if I didn't know what to do, his hands were out and everything, I would never be the teacher with the gun. Let's be very clear. But what if you felt fear for your life? If I feared for my life and that's all I did, there's so many problems there. I also am really proud of the fact that we're hearing such young voices protesting about this, saying that they're saying they don't feel comfortable about this. But what's really, I think, interesting to look at in Tennessee is a particular study is that this is coming from a place of fear. We had that awful mass shooting there last year. And so we're looking at these other states where they're number 32 on the list. I want to see, when have these teachers used it? Has there ever been a reason to have?
I think it's probably just so they can have that option, but are they really even using guns in the classroom? Anything is probably a school resource officer might have a gun on them. Maybe that's what they're talking about. I don't want to speculate too much, but it does make me very nervous, just because I understand and see how people treat black bodies, young but big black bodies, young but just dark black bodies. So I'm very worried about if you have too many places where educators are already a little nervous about black students. I feel like the weaponization, literally, of having guns in the classroom. Yep. I'm scared of that. I don't see that happening well. I did have a kid put his hands on me. The other kids took care of him. Yeah. So it was like one of those things. Exactly. Where, but I had enough sense to I'm not fighting this kid. Yeah. He was bigger than me. So wasn't gonna win anyway. But we're gonna win.
The smallest kid in my class then was like, not Miss Misha.
They are so cute with it too. They're not my teacher. I love that so much. Yeah. Even with I did a career day the other day. The kids were so yesterday. They were so energetic, so excited to see you there. But what if somebody's they're running up against me? Yeah, because they're running to hug you. Yeah. But if you think you're being bum rushed, okay, are you gonna take are you gonna take a fence? Are you going to literally try to push them away? Do you fear for your life? No. We've had too many examples of people being uncomfortable around black kids.
But 2 points. I guess I'm 2 for 2 for 2 for 2. There is also the other side of a student possibly getting his or her hand on a gun that a teacher has on his or her person.
Totally possible.
Big liability.
That's
liability.
the first thing you think about.
Right, that's the first thing.
Danger,
But-
liability,
and-
in-school shooting.
Yes.
You know, we can keep going down. We have too much violence already plaguing our nation's institutions. I don't think you want to be arming them.
No.
I really do not think that is the answer. On top of that is, even if they're saying, okay, because of these mass shootings, so is this person, I hope they're ready to go and be Super Commando Rambo up in here, because what we saw with that one school down in, what was the one where, in Texas or whatever?
Oh, when they didn't.
Uvalde?
Uvalde.
Yeah, like waiting back. I'm not scared. I'm not trying to. I know it's got to be scary.
But it also happened in Florida, at the mass shooting there. But the second thing was, and I wanted you to finish your point, Micha. You said when you were teaching, you had a student who rushed you. So what happened?
Well, as Nicki said, my students did come to the rescue pretty quickly. They saw what was happening, knew that this student who has had a history of emotional health challenges and behavioral health challenges. And so because of that, they stepped in. Like I said, my smallest student was one of the first to sort of try to hold him back. But had that not happened, or had we been alone, there was a lot of times where in office hours I was alone with students, and had that happened, I would have attempted in all sorts of ways to calm him down without violence. And I think that there are, often where we need to listen to children. I had the opportunity to be an arts and acting teacher, and so I really listened to them a lot, and knew what their emotions were, that I had them journal. And of course, I just was a bit intuitive at times with what was happening. And so, sometimes a kid needs a big hug. I know that's we're not supposed to do that anymore. But sometimes
they need a hug.
Do they need a big hug right then and there? Is it, okay, we're going to breathe? Are we going to hold hands together and
I've
breathe?
done the breathing with students a lot, just because that's the closest you can get to trying to hug them.
Yeah.
And they might need to de-escalate. I've watched kids get so much better with their self-regulation, their energy. Sometimes they really are enraged, they're upset, and they're young. So figuring out, how do I work through those emotions?
Right.
Not every teacher knows how to do that.
We did not plan on discussing this, but we do have some breaking news to talk about.
What's happening?
This just coming down, and we may revisit this when we talk about former President Trump. However, the Associated Press is reporting 11 Republicans who submitted a document to Congress falsely declaring that Donald Trump beat Joe Biden in Arizona in the 2020 presidential election have been charged with conspiracy, fraud, and forgery, marking the fourth state to bring charges against fake electors. This through an Arizona grand jury. That is a really, really big story, because I think it suggests that our imperfect justice system is still working. Didn't mean to just throw that out at you, but if, Micha, if you have some thoughts about that real quick.
I mean, I have so many thoughts. They're going a mile a minute, but I think the first thought is that people are still working very hard to combat false information, misinformation that we've had over 4 years of at this point. It's really, really quite insane. And so I think that's one really important thing to note here. The other piece to that is that Donald Trump is already in the middle of so much, I will say, controversy. I don't want to say criminal issues because I don't want to get in trouble. But he's in a lot of controversy in the courts. And so I'm looking at this with this state, and we can compare Georgia and we can compare other places and say that the heat is on. The heat is on.
Well said.
And as we're going into an election season, it's good that the heat is on.
Yeah. Well, well said. Nicki, some thoughts about this breaking news that we're just getting in?
I really need
There
to
it
see more
is.
about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that says it all.
It is the famous Nicki Mayo
I can't. I just need to see more information on it before I can comment.
interjection of disgust.
Yes.
I really do hate anything that throws yet another reason for people to doubt the American election system.
Yeah.
Just how we do our government. There's too many things already making you just distrust government. And then anytime I see stuff like this, I'm like, okay, what are we doing today? So I really want to see more about it before I comment any further, but it's just one of those, we don't need this.
Well, I mean, but that point is so important because we're already looking at so many people who are saying that their votes don't matter, their votes don't count. And so in certain ways, this is saying actually they do. And when people lie about it, we'll get to the bottom of it. The other piece of that is, dang, it took so long. There's all these issues.
We're in another election cycle.
We're in another election cycle. There's also so much drama surrounding it that do I even want to participate in this process? And so, I think the really important conversation to have, particularly with voters or for people who are eligible to vote but not voting, is that they have to inform themselves at least on why voting would matter to them. Okay, and why it would matter to their community and their kids. Because if not, they're going to say, well, it doesn't matter because 11 Republicans said I voted for Trump.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is it does matter because 11 alleged cheaters were caught.
Well, yes, which is so great. I love that that's happening.
Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Well, and then the other piece to that, which we're gonna hear the rhetoric that is DJ Trump. I don't like saying his whole name. Is
DJ
45,
but not because he 45 yet, and not because he has rhythm or good beats. But anyway, going back to DJ, I think that part of the issue there is that he always says that this is this huge attack against him, this complete campaign to bring down his entire campaign, to bring down him as a person. And so when we're looking at, he is going to come to the defense of these 11 legislators in Arizona, no question, just like he is saying that the January 6th folks are hostages.
Yeah.
We know that he'll do this.
The national anthem on the LP.
Yes.
I do want to move on to, because we still have a couple of important issues to talk about. More pro-Palestinian protests breaking out on U.S. campuses today. This is what we heard. So that was at the University of Texas, the Austin campus. The Texas state troopers were there on horseback. There were protests at USC, protests at Brown. The protest at Columbia University is wrapping up its 8th day. No matter how you feel about this issue, this has become a mess.
Yeah.
It has become a mess on college campuses. Columbia going to virtual classes now. Some of these clashes have been pretty muscular, Nikki.
Yeah, I've always been a big advocate for students should have the right to assemble. They should have the right to protest things, but it should not threaten their fellow students' safety. So if there are accounts of people being threatened, if they're being targeted, then this is not a safe protest. So there has to be that balance. You can peacefully assemble, sing all the songs, chant, whatever you want to do, but you cannot be coming after your fellow classmates. That's just a no. People pay way too much money to go to college first.
Yeah.
So there you go, that part. Then there's also just safety. They should always, we just talked about that with education. The colleges, the schools, every institution of learning should be a safe space for the students. So you're okay until you're starting to jeopardize the safety of your classmates. Then that's not okay.
I mean, and we're talking, this is like rules that college students need to learn, because that also
the real
like,
world.
it's the real world.
The real world.
I'm honestly, most of them are over 18, and if they start getting violent, they will still be arrested as adults. No matter what. Like Nicki said, it is so beautiful to see them coming together in this way, using their voices and their power. I mean, huge power in numbers, and we're seeing that there. I think what is really concerning, other than the violence that's coming from this. And we know, I mean, we've seen it year after year, and from college campuses to even high schools, if we remember the Gen 6, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Where students don't get along, and there's violence that can come from that, and sometimes it's out of racism or out of religious difference. Unfortunately, even at that micro level that we're looking at a high school or at a college, but this is a really major issue, and these college students are not only worried about the state of the world, but how things are being addressed and handled.
Or not
addressed and
Yeah,
handled.
I mean, I'm very impressed, actually, because I was the student activist person. I was leading the marches and stuff and all that. So I'm impressed at them being so interested in something a world away.
Yes,
arguably.
but it's so close. I mean, I'm
It's
looking
close to
at
home as
it's
their
close.
family members and
Their
stuff,
family
yeah.
members,
Yeah.
and even like I went to Fordham Lincoln Center, which wasn't far from Columbia, and I'm thinking like had so many Palestinian friends and things like that who or had just come there for school and things like that, and so they're it's touching them in a way that I think that other than the fact that the numbers are horrifying, I'm sure, and that is something that is also catapulting them to use their voices. But I also think that, we look at the Columbia example, these students had been protesting for quite some time, being advocates, peaceful protesters, I should say, in a way that was getting other people very excited, and without warning got suspended. And so when we're looking at how things are being addressed, I think that we got to talk about systemic issues within the universities as well.
But these are private institutions in many cases, okay? So that's why I was like, when you're talking about life lessons, okay, well, here's a big one right here.
Yeah.
When you protest in a private institution, which I learned firsthand going to one,
the rules are
the rules are different. It's not a free forum.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about, again, I went to a private school right down the street. There has to be something before all of a sudden, there's academic probation. There's something that
there is, and there's making an example of somebody. And that's it. That's it. Yeah.
And I think it's very bold of Barnard, Columbia, whoever you want to point fingers at, to make an example of a congresswoman's daughter as a part of that group. I just feel like, and I was one of those people. I was protesting stuff at Fordham all the time, but specifically because we're talking about the real world, and you want to treat these people like adults in all ways. And part of that,
and that is, you might face some level of prosecution.
I think there's consequences.
And like you said, it is different when you're talking about a Fordham or a Columbia as opposed to a Morgan State or University of Maryland.
Yeah, anything state-centric, you have a better shot at being vocal and staying vocal. I mean, think about like a lot of the student activism that we normally like harken back to is always like Berkeley. Like they were just, they were lit the entire time.
For sure.
But no, my mom's rule was like, listen, you get out of school in 4 years and you do not get arrested. So that was the rule.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
I do want to move on to another in this last five minutes.
How?
7.
What are we going to talk about in 5 minutes?
What can you talk about in 5 minutes?
I can condense it down. What you got?
That is why you're here.
We have to talk about Caitlin Clark.
But that's the point that I was going to make.
That's really important.
So, and there were so many moving parts with this. Of course, Monumental Sports moving the June 7th game between the Indiana Fever and the Washington Mystics to Capital One Arena because there's such a huge demand for the tickets for the Fever and Caitlin Clark. Of course, she was number 1 WNBA draft pick. Some black folks are upset about that, but they're probably upset about the coverage that Caitlin Clark has received because, of course, with
there's so many other people.
Yeah,
Like,
with
yeah.
Dawn Staley, and all of her magnificent blackness,
Yes.
leading the University of South Carolina to yet, another championship.
Very brave.
Thank you.
So, Nicki, Caitlin Clark is good. She's great. But
She's great. What she does.
let's not take that away from her. Arguably, Iowa would not have gotten as far as it did without her.
Yes.
But just like across the country, black folks are 12% of the population of this country.
But when it comes to the NBA, the WNBA, I'm not a super sports person, but I do understand our presence inside of these sports.
Right.
So it is kind of hurtful, or I guess I can't say slap in the face because it's not like any of us are going to collect any endorsement money that any of these people get. But when you hear about like the fact that so many white female players are getting these endorsement deals, when you're like looking at someone like, was it Asia? I don't even want to embarrass myself, but you have other black players that have better records, that have, does she have a ring?
Well, no.
No.
Exactly.
Yes.
That they have rings.
Right.
And they don't have these endorsement deals. They don't have this pool where people are moving entire games. It does hurt, but I mean, the WNBA is, if I'm not mistaken, like a late 90s institution.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
still developing.
It's still developing, it's still growing, and as it gets bigger, then more pull and more power can come to it. But right now, the pay equity is a joke, like a bona fide joke when it comes to comparison to the NBA. Caitlin Clark being singled out as, I don't know, like the great white hope or like a Larry Bird type of thing here. It's kind of like, it's cringy. It's so cringy, but you understand what her presence does for the sport.
Yeah.
What it means for little girls across the country. We get it. So it hurts to watch it, but you get it. And she has been very vocal and in front of the camera, even when she got invited to SNL, but she didn't win. But you get the, going for here, like she's the pull and she's the moment. And that's the direction things are going to go. And we worked in news. We understand that. Last year was like the angel reese year.
Yeah.
For sure. Though again, it was an Angel Reese year because she was killing it, but unfortunately, she won. But the difference was that unfortunately, a lot of the press was negative surrounding her.
Well, that's kind of what a lot of us do, unfortunately. Conflict brings in the viewers.
But that was a little messed up because
it stole her shine.
It stole her shine. The conflict had to do with the fact that that the first lady was bringing in
the losers.
That was problematic.
And though she was making noise in the right way, folks thought that she wasn't being a team player and a fair sportsman, and which it
was
wasn't
competition.
Fair.
That's what they do.
Okay, but I don't like the fact that I'm a black woman, everything anyway. So it's like for black women, we always have to share our shine. And it's like, why do we have to share the win? And I think that's where the slight came from.
That was the problem. But here's the thing. Okay, so I have a lot of feels about Caitlin Clark, but the girl is a beast.
She's good at what she does.
That there are people who have been absolutely amazing, and black women in particular. I've seen a lot of people who are like, this just proves that black women are bomb at basketball. I'm like, black women are bomb at everything. Like that, we know this to be the case. That said, Caitlin Clark is literally record-setting shooter in the NCAA. Women, men, everybody.
Threes from the half court. I'm like, man, how do you do that?
I mean, I think at this point it was like not in the last game. She surpassed the 54-year record for most points. I mean, it's crazy in the NCAA. She really is a beast, and as much as I didn't want to see Iowa when they played LSU, I was like, oh my gosh, who is this monster?
Yeah.
So there's that, and I think that part of the appeal here is that getting to see. And I don't want to compare this white woman to Michael Jordan, but I'm going to. Is being able to see Michael Jordan play in his first year, getting to see a LeBron James play in their first year, someone who's really unreal. Okay, I mean, it is what it is, and so there's that. Washingtonians are not only mad about the fact that some of them are not going to be able to use their tickets that they purchased because they
that would make me mad.
Now that's problematic.
That's really problematic. That would make me
They
mad
should honor.
because they honor folks who purchased through ESA, but if
those
those
secondaries.
third parties,
Yeah, or whatever, yeah.
StubHubs, all of that, you're not
screwed.
you're not getting your seats back. That's problematic, and I know why folks are angry.
I did want to drill down on one other thing, and this is really important, less about Caitlin Clark and more about the WNBA, because I'm not well versed, and maybe Micha, because I know you like basketball. Did you play?
And look, I only brought that up because it was important that one episode, Harold. However, I did play a little bit. No, I was so bad.
But here's my question, and this is the ignorant non-sports person question about equity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a joke.
Why is this still a struggle? And I'm not talking about $1 million a year, $2 million a year. I mean, these most excellent women, whether it's Caitlin Clark or any of the black women in the WNBA, why can't they get a half of it? What's going on here?
So part of it really is, which again goes back to this point of Monumental Sports making this move, is that folks, you weren't getting enough butts and seats to pay some of these, to really pay these athletes what they deserve.
It's like soccer, like women's soccer.
Exactly. Yeah. And so folks were getting a lot of really great sponsorships and deals with Nike and things, just like Caitlin Clark is doing. I mean, this cool contract that she has, I think, is like $28 million.
Right, $28 million.
But, and we were seeing black athletes in particular in the WNBA getting certain, small sort of partnerships and sponsorships, nothing to that level, which is another equity problem we're talking about here. Yeah. But in terms of pay for the WNBA versus the NBA, is that we didn't have enough folks supporting it.
Yeah.
Now
we're showing up.
Now we're showing up.
Yeah, now we're showing up.
Now we're showing up.
I've got 2 minutes real quick. And I said we were going to talk about, Donald Trump. Yes, we know it's right. Well, there it is, DJ, as you call it. Important story. But do we care? Should we care, Nicki?
Care about the outcome, but watching it day by day is not even healthy remotely. I'm sorry. It's kind of like we're regurgitating over what happened in 2020, 2016. There is an entire general election that revolves not around just that one particular presidential race. I'd rather people start paying more attention to what's happening in your local jurisdictions, not this. I'm sorry.
Micha, 30 seconds.
Absolutely care about what's happening in your local community, though I also will say, know why Donald Trump is in trouble. I think there's still people wondering what this case is about.
What's the hush? What are we hushing?
It's about him. It's about him allegedly fooling around with a Playboy model and a porn star.
So it's not really kitchen table talk.
No,
at all.
No, definitely not. Okay, well, I got that.
Hey, just
Nicki Mayo, Micha Green.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for participating in this conversation. I really appreciate it.
We loved it.
Yes, indeed. That is the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, April 24th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.
This program was brought to you by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.